I signed up for a hard enduro training program with Cody Webb himself. I wanted to know what it was like to ride with this guy. I'm going to show you what it's like to do what Cody would consider some pretty light training on this group ride. But before we get started, I wanted to do a couple shout outs. First was to Ready to Ride Rentals down there in Arizona, and MJS Moto Photos, who both those guys got together and put together this amazing event. Any still photos you see in here is from this amazing photographer. So this is day one. We're just getting started on our first group ride with Cody. We're going along a river here on the way to the actual place where we're going to do some hard enduro training. I had the luxury of doing an interview with Cody later on, and here's what he had to say about the beginning of this trip that you're seeing here. So what was your first impression with the group ride after the first time getting out there?
My first impression right off the bat was like, oh shit, we are in for some trouble. Because Bo takes us down the road for like 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, nice little warm up, rode kind of along this creek, and the water was deep, so, we had a little bit of extreme stuff there, and then he just takes us right off the bat into probably the worst canyon we could have warmed up in, and it caught me off guard, and I think it caught everyone else off guard. So once we struggled up that first bit, then I was able to let things kind of roll out. Yeah. It went pretty well. So at first I was like, oh no, we're screwed, but it ended up working out pretty well once we pulled each other up the first bit.
Yeah. Were you, considering the size and the varying skill level of the group, were you happy with the pace and kind of how everybody did? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of every time you go on a group ride, like some people will go out in front, or you always have one person in the group that wants to be a show off and do everything first, but there actually wasn't that person on this group, so I was pretty impressed by that. But everyone kind of gets spread out in their own comfortability level, and honestly I think it's been flowing pretty well. There's been stop parts where we have to wait, but it's not always just because someone's slowing us up, like people are tipping over and breaking parts of the bike, and you gotta fix it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So here we are at the beginning of essentially our first canyon run up. So Cody's to the right of me. I was trying to joke around saying I'll lead the way. Of course, it wouldn't have been fun if I led the way. So Cody takes the first line here and kind of shows us the way. I don't know what I was thinking. I decided to follow him up there. Probably because he made it look easy, and it really wasn't. Now when we get to the top here, I have no idea to this day why I didn't just take this right line to move forward. Instead, I decided to take this left line, which means I had to jump my bike up over the rock there, and in the process of doing that, I almost hit Cody's bike, which would have been pretty embarrassing. But I got through it and just kind of struggled up to the next section. Now we're all moving up the canyon as a group, kind of get to our next major obstacle. Everything up until then, as you can see, is pretty simple, nothing too crazy. Still stuff you gotta contend with, but it's kind of fun. But it's nothing like what we're looking at here, which is basically, from my perspective, just a huge giant wall of rock. Here's Cody trying to get up it. Obviously, keep in mind too, we're all running gummy tires. Cody is not running gummy tires, so he's at a natural disadvantage, yet still looks the best of all of us. I think this is truly the only obstacle in this entire 3-day event that I saw him actually kind of have to hop off his bike like that. So. And then after that, we all just kind of took turns going up there. This one wasn't easy. I know it's hard to see, but there was some pretty deep ruts at the very beginning of this, so it made it that much more challenging. And once we got up there, and here I am getting up there. I wasn't going to try and hop up there, but maybe they saw what my skill level was, and decided they're just going to help me move it up there, which I guess I'm not complaining too much about. Not a big deal, because we got, after we get up this, we got yet another huge obstacle. And that's essentially how this whole canyon ride went. There's nothing but huge obstacle after huge obstacle. But that's why we signed up. We signed up for a hard enduro adventure. And that is exactly what we got. Alright, so we're moving up, and not even 30 yards after that last obstacle, we have our next obstacle, which is not as, challenging in just a different way. But we weren't having to kind of drag some of the bikes up the way we were on this one.
Okay, I'm not used to this clutch yet.
And sorry, I felt pretty confident riding this, but after watching the video, it's pretty painful watching me get up some of this stuff. Now here's Cody kind of getting up this next obstacle here. It wasn't too bad. Not if you're good at ghosting bikes like me. It's actually pretty easy.
Sorry, guys.
That's my style, dude.
But I got up it. I was happy.
I
was actually happy this whole trip. Nobody had to take my bike up anything other than about a half dozen times a ghost rider on some of the really challenging stuff.
The Ohio flyout.
Up is up.
Superman in here. They were trying to drag it through it.
So that last obstacle is probably one of the last of the really, really difficult stuff. Now we're moving higher up into this boulder valley. Things are starting to get a little less challenging. Unless you're watching me ride, it probably looks like it's more challenging than it needs to be. The obstacles are still pretty tough, but they're starting to lessen up, lighten up a little bit. Our next obstacle here was just another big shelf we got to hop up on.
I'm not going anyway.
It was actually kind of fun. So you just kind of do a little zigzagging up this cliff here, swing your bike out and get going. Now, of course, Cody's going to jump in front of us, and as you can see here, and he makes all this stuff look way too easy. It's awesome to see it in person, but then you realize how bad you really suck. As you can see, no big deal, just hopping up it. And when you see me get up there, it's, I'm a middle of the road rider, so it's I made it look a lot more difficult probably than it should be, the two polar ends of the spectrum there. So, as I mentioned, we just had to, there really wasn't room to kick your bike around, so you have to kind of pivot your bike over there. And I'm still getting used to this clutch. This is a rental bike. This guy has these things decked out really nice. I'm used to I'm not making excuses. I know I still have a lot of skill left to conquer in myself, but I just wasn't feeling 100% comfortable with the clutch setup on this bike. But made it work. Got up this. I told the Ghost Rider to hang out for a bit and was able to get up this one. But after this, it's pretty smooth sailing. Everything got a little easier, which is good because right about now, after dragging your bike up and down all that stuff, you're starting to get a little more fatigued. So the fact that the terrain got a little easier was a lot better. And the obstacles are all of a sudden becoming more of what I thought we were getting into, which, don't get me wrong, I'm happy it was far beyond what I thought we were getting into. I wanted to basically be pretty destroyed after this. And, it was pretty challenging, and you just had to make you think more than you used to. I'm from Ohio, so the only thing I had to think about was how not to hit corn. Now I got to think about tire placement and everything that you don't normally have an opportunity to constantly be thinking about. And these boulder fields, there wasn't a whole lot of rocks here, but it was actually pretty fun. Then we also have a lot of downtime. Not a lot of downtime. We've had a decent amount of downtime just to get to know each other. All the riders in this trip are amazing. as you can see, this is just a lot of fun. Now we're kind of at the point where we're just cruising up this valley, kind of tackling the last segment of it, which is not a lot of steep stuff. It's just a lot of smaller boulders, and it's just kind of fun to run through. I decided to take a little different line than everybody else. It wasn't too much more difficult. The problem is I chose a shortcut, which I probably shouldn't have. As I'm coming up here, I'm seeing this guy. Hey, water's not that deep. I'm gonna go around this guy, and come to find out, about a foot into it, that thing is like 3 feet deep.
I didn't realize that.
So there's the first time I dumped my bike in the water. Luckily I didn't drown it out, picked it up, good to go. And we're off again.
Okay, that sucked.
So now, this part of the video, we're kind of we're coming up to the very end of this canyon, where you've come all the way up to the top, and we'll end up coming out to a road up here. We're about, I'd say about 2 hours deep into the trip, roughly. My sense of time may be a little off due to my fatigue. But you know, we're pretty tuckered. Well, at least I was pretty tuckered after this, and I started to run out of water at this point. But you know, they said, "Hey, this is going to be the toughest valley of them all." So I took them for their word. Unfortunately, it wasn't, in my opinion. So we scooted on to the next valley. This valley was a little different. First thing we do is we go down the valley. We get all the way to the bottom, then turn around and come right back up. This valley was actually kind of a little bit sketchy going down, so I hate these GoPros. I love and hate the GoPros because they don't do it justice. The steepness, the terrain, the size of the rocks that you're going over. So we end up going down this canyon, and I've kind of took some of the clips and put them together to do my best to demonstrate, you know, how steep and how fairly gnarly this was going down. It took us I'd say about 20 minutes to get down this thing, and it was, I don't know what, maybe 300-400 yards long, you know, going straight down like this. So as we're going down, there's a lot of tricky little tricky little drop-offs, especially if you're me and you choose bad lines like this. So fortunately I had to kind of stand my bike up and pivot it out of that, but I made it through. I know probably 99% of the other riders chose a good line that didn't make you do something awkward like this. point, we're now at the bottom of the canyon, and we're gonna essentially take a little breather, turn around, and do it again. Cody was actually helping me with my bike here. This is the last time I saw him essentially on his bike here going up it. It was pretty easy for him and pretty tough for me, so. But as they say, what goes down must come up. And here we go, all the way back up. Now going up took a lot longer, of course, just because it was a lot more difficult. It's easier to drop your bike down cliffs, it's harder to jump it back up. I got pretty dang fatigued going up here this time, just simply because I was already out of water, I was exhausted from the first canyon, and you know, once fatigue sets in, it's kind of a downhill. As anybody knows who's done this kind of stuff, it's a downward spiral, right? You have to get off your bike to push it, and you're already tired, and then you're even more tired, you start making more mistakes, so on and so forth. And since my skill level, you know, I'm not the best at this stuff, so I made more mistakes than not. So going up all this stuff, this kind of part, this stuff was actually kind of fun, where it really wasn't too awful steep. You're just it was kind of challenging to kind of go in an upward incline over the rocks versus a downward incline. I know myself, I learned a couple things out here, that balance is king, and that's something I have to work on tremendously, especially going up stuff like this, to be able to kind of hop on your pegs, balance, and start getting velocity as quick as earthly possible. Most guys here on this trip have some sort of trials background, so that's what everybody told me. Go get a trials bike and keep practicing on that. And it makes a ton of sense, honestly. So I may be in the market to find a cheap trials where I can start trying to hone in a lot more of my balance, so I can do a lot more of this stuff without it looking so painful in video, essentially.
Yeah, I'm just taking a breather.
It might help if you get your rear tire where your feet are.
Huh?
It might help if you get your rear tire where your feet are.
Yeah. That might be the best line. I'm learning something already.
That struggling isn't fun.
I can say though that I've hardly ghosted my bike before, but on this trip I kind of did it a lot more than I ever thought I would be doing
Get
it.
it in the air?
You know, at this point I'm pretty tired anyway, and I'm just saying, F it, let's just get up this thing. Not at this point I'm making those mistakes, not weighting myself on the bike properly, but you know, taking it like a line as if I needed to, and as we know, that's kind of how ghosts are created. So now we're about 3/4 of the way up the hill, and we're getting to more of the challenging part where the incline gets a lot steeper. We don't have a lot of huge step-ups. It's just a lot of tough rocks to go up on a fairly steep incline. And at this point, I am just utterly just kind of destroyed. If you listen to the video close, you'll just hear a beaten, panting man try to finish this canyon off.
Balls.
So here we are trying to get up a kind of a double shelf, and I kind of ungracefully make up the first shelf and quickly made up the second shelf, but up is up. So at this point, I'm tired and I don't care how I get up there. I just want to kind of get through this. So this last bit here, you just kind of, unless you're a Cody Webb, you kind of have to kind of zigzag through it, and I was just so dead. I just kind of said, heck with it, I'm going to kind of walk my bike and zigzag through there because I just need a breather, and I want to get up this thing and take a break, maybe steal a sip of somebody's water or whatnot. But this was the very tippy top, and we made it back down. I mean, in some of these clips, you kind of get an idea of how steep it was that you just went up. And I was so glad to be at the top and just relax for a bit. But now that we're at the top, we took a little breather, and we had to kind of go down, and we're going to do one more lap, or we're going to take a scenic way back to the truck where we loaded everything up. So we decided to go back down by the river and just kind of take a little, not a too terribly difficult way, but just a kind of a rocky way back. Alright, so here in just a minute, I end up drowning the bike out. Don't have a lot of excuses for this outside of, I know I need to get my skill level higher and to take my time and really think things through when you're pretty tired and fatigued. So you come up on this little rock face here, and your forks kind of slam into there. So you got to pop your tire up over there. At first, those gummies are spinning for a second, so I pop my tire up and give it a little more gas, obviously, than I should have, and the bike takes off, and next thing I know, I'm standing in the creek with Cody, picking the bike up, and we are draining it, getting it ready to run again. After we got the bike running, the rest of the trip was fairly easy heading back. It was just, we're kind of recovering our tracks from when the trip started, going over those same rock faces along the river there, just in reverse. So it was a little fun. It wasn't too challenging, and frankly, it felt like a smooth paved road after what we had just went through those boulder canyons. But fortunately, I was pretty fatigued at this point, so I was still struggling on what felt like a smooth paved road. That night, I knew I did make some corrections. I ate a little better, slept a little more, and kind of got ready for the next day on day 2. And the subsequent days went a lot more smooth for me after I ate a little better, slept a little better, so on and so forth. I had the right amount of energy and was making less mistakes. The first day was the most rough for me. So, day 1 is in the books. So, the next couple of videos, I think I'm going to combine day 2 and day 3 together into one video simply because my
Alright, I'm ready
GoPro
for
cut
4
out
more
on half
hours.
of the days. So, just due to lack of video, and we'd just be going through kind of the same stuff over and over.